And here to talk about selling a property right now in this type of market, with inventory being incredibly low, with competition being very low, and really a slew of buyers that are kind of just watching the market like a hawk, waiting for new properties to hit the market. And then as soon as those properties hit the market, you as a seller get swarmed. In most instances, that's frankly exactly what's happening. So in the last segment, we were talking about some of the different, kind of key goals that a seller has when selling a property. Either I need to sell it now, I have some sort of constraint. That means that I don't have time to mess around, I need to sell my property. That doesn't always mean distress. It could be, hey, I have a house that I want to buy, and I need to sell my home relatively quickly in order to be able to buy that, because that seller that's selling the home I want to buy isn't going to wait around on me. They're not going to let me kind of push the envelope, so to speak, on pricing and have it take a few months to sell. This needs to get done, and I need it done fairly quickly. Of course, you have other folks that say, hey, I don't really care how long it takes to sell. I want the most money I can possibly get, which means that you might have to say no to an offer or two or three from folks that want a little bit of a quote-unquote deal in order to get the price that you want. I've had some sellers in this market that have taken well above the average days on market, which is currently 41 days right now in our market, although we all know that the majority of properties that are priced well, in good condition, marketed well, they're going to sell in a week or less. But we've had some folks that have held out for higher prices, and it's worked. It's just, you have to have the confidence in the process, and you have to have realistic expectations about what buyers are going to say, while also realizing that in most instances, and this is, I was explaining this to somebody a few days ago, in most instances, you kind of have to look at a listing almost as like a depreciating asset. The longer you hold on to it, the less it's worth to the general public, because of that perception that, hey, if this hasn't sold, there must be some reason why. That's when having an experienced agent comes into play. Anytime we have a property that's been on the market for, say, more than 2 months, we almost always get the question of, hey, why has this been on the market so long? What's going on with this? Why isn't this sold? And again, it depends on the seller's strategy. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of instances where a seller and an agent work together, and the service, the ability of the agent just isn't quite on par with what that seller thought they were getting. I mean, over 60% of the listings that my team sell were previously listed with another real estate agent, if it gives you any indication. So with these folks, it really just depends on that particular seller's level of motivation. We have a lot of folks that are selling right now that are just saying, hey, I don't have to sell, so let me just put that on the table right now. This is not a requirement. There's nothing pushing me out of this house, but I see the opportunity. I'll tell you, we're doing this a lot with land right now. We are helping people cash in on land, more so than we ever have. We're selling a ton of it right now. So you have these folks that look at the market opportunistically, and they say, hey, I want a really good price. And you've got that type of seller as well. But then you also have the folks that say, look, I just want a reasonable transaction. I know that it's a seller's market, so I know I'm going to get a good price for my house. But I want the process to be simple. I want it to be easy. I don't want to be in this situation where, a few days before closing, things hit the fan, and now I've got to start over. And so depending upon the situation of the seller and really what they want out of the transaction, we have a bunch of different options for them. So for the folks that, want to sell really quickly, they have some sort of time constraint, or they have some sort of distress that requires them to sell quickly. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sell below fair market value. It just means that the strategy you employ solicits immediate offers. So that could be something like underpricing the property by like literally 2%. And I can almost guarantee that you will get multiple offers on that property. The market is so hot right now that it almost prevents a seller on an open market from underselling a property. I mean, that's how competitive the market is right now. So if you're in some sort of time constraint, that's probably the best option. It's just, hey, let's price it at what it's worth, maybe a tick below, and let's let the buyers fight over it. Let's let them be the ones to raise the price against themselves to be the one that ultimately wins the bid and wins the deal. And this, frankly, is a challenge that I see a lot of for sale by owners going through right now, is they don't really have much of an issue with putting a property under contract, accepting an offer. The challenge comes in when that buyer knows they have the ability to do a home inspection and that it's contingent upon an appraisal, and it has all these other built-in contingencies to the contract, which allow them to renegotiate with that seller. And so once that home inspection comes in, whether it's a for sale by owner or it's just a home listed on the open market, those buyers are going to try to beat you up over the things that those inspectors find. And I have seen, I can't even tell you, probably getting close to 10,000 home inspection reports. I can't recall a single one where the inspector said, actually, you know what? There's nothing wrong with this house. Clean bill of health. Way to go. That just doesn't happen. They're going to find something. So these buyers are going to beat you up after that inspection to try and drive that price back down. And the justification is, hey, I'm paying you absolute top dollar for this property with the assumption that it was in good condition. We have found these items. I'd like for you to fix them. It's a reasonable argument, but sellers still have the upper hand. Yes, you might negotiate a little bit back and forth based on some things, or maybe there were some issues that you just didn't know about. It makes sense to address them because the key is once a seller puts a property under contract, that property gets inspected, and then the buyer shares that report with the seller and says, hey, here are all the deficiencies that we found. Here is an addendum to the contract that says you're going to fix these things. If you can't work out a deal, then you as the seller are now obligated to disclose those material defects, present material defects, which means that anybody else that asks, you're going to have to share that information. You really need to do it proactively through a document called a property condition disclosure statement that gives people an understanding of what they're getting themselves into so they can make, informed decisions on the purchase price. So you're going to have to deal with it one way or the other is the bottom line there. So if you're not willing to go through this process of selling it on the open market, we also have access to a bunch of investors that are waiting for deals to come across their desk. They're cash heavy. Inventory is low. Opportunities are few and far between because there's just not much room for investors right now. And it really doesn't make sense in many instances for sellers to sell at a deep discount to an investor so that they can do a deal or two a year and, pocket massive amounts of money. The home run opportunities, so to speak, for investors are very few and far between right now. So if you need just a quick sale, we have access to a bunch of investors. They'll write you a check on the spot. We'll buy the property if we can work out a deal. I'm literally in the middle of one right now where I'm buying a property from a seller that contacted me and said, I don't really want to go through this whole process. It's a rental property. It's in rough shape. I don't want to deal with the process of renovating it. I'd rather just sell it as is, cash in and do something else with the money. And so I'm buying it from him. And I told him up front, which this is the key here. And this is what I think is lacking in our industry, is that there are so many different programs out there, so many different incentives or guarantees. We call them unique selling propositions that entice you to contact an agent. Oh, you're going to give me a guaranteed offer on my home? Well, how much is it? You're going to buy my house? Well, what are you going to offer me? All these different things have caveats. They have asterisks next to them. And I was very clear. I said, hey, we can list this property and I can sell it for more than what I'm buying it for. But if I'm going to buy it, then it needs to be a smart financial decision for me. It needs to be a win-win. So I'm going to put on my investor hat and make you an offer, but just understand that I can very easily take that hat off and put my real estate agent hat back on and get you more money for this house. It's just that that's not what he wanted to do. So we have the ability to buy it from you. We have the ability to have other investors buy it from you. We have the ability to generate multiple offers very quickly. And we have this large stack of buyers that are looking for properties every day. And what's really cool is, and I'm a tech nerd, I will fully admit that I'm a techie guy. And it has served me really well in this job that I have. This life choice that I've made, which is to be a real estate agent. And I love it. And so what's really cool is that I can put in any address into my database. And based on, the bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, anticipated sales price, I can literally in seconds get a full list of every single buyer that my team and I are communicating with that would be interested in a home like that. And it's usually a few hundred people. And so what we've gotten really good at, especially in a low inventory market, is kind of playing that role of matchmaker. Who are we already communicating with? Who do we know that's looking for a property like this that we can just bring to you directly? You know, what if this buyer can skip to the front of the line and just make you a competitive offer on this house? Doesn't mean you have to take it, but I can get you an offer without having to go through the process of getting professional photos and having your home open and having literally dozens of showings in one weekend, which means you need to take a trip because you can't live in your house. I mean, you can't be there when people are showing it. Well, I suppose you can, but you're not supposed to. So if you want to skip to the head of the line, either as a buyer, let us know what you're looking for, and when we communicate with sellers, we'll bring those off-market opportunities to you. Or as a seller, if you don't want to go on the open market, let us know. We'll tell you which buyers we have. It's really become simple in our world, in my team, to connect people. And that's, I think, what's making the big difference. And the challenge that real estate agents have is that, quite frankly, they just don't have the structure, the systems, the processes built into their business model to be able to accomplish something like that. It has taken quite a bit of time and effort for us to be able to have the ability to do that. You would think that that's fairly commonplace with regard to, real estate software, but it's just not. So that's been pretty fun, pretty exciting to be able to just say, hey, if you want to sell your property, here are all the people that we're working with. And I literally show them the report. I mean, I don't give it to them because it has their name, their number, their email address, other homes they've looked at, their buying time frame. And I say, hey, here's the list of people that we can call today. I've got 24 people on my team. We can get through basically any list in a day and have those conversations. See if one of these buyers wants to purchase your home. And the cool thing about that is that it doesn't have to be an immediate sale. We have folks that are looking in 3 to 6 months. If you as a seller say, yeah, I'd like to sell my home at some point in time this summer, who do you have that might be interested? Not only are we matching up the property with a buyer, but we're also matching up time frames. So if that's something you want to learn more about, feel free to give me a call. I'd love to walk you through it. See if, and I'll, even if you're just curious, I'll run the analysis for you. I'll say, hey, based on what we're looking at, we have, 136 buyers that we're communicating with right now that are interested in a home like yours. So if that's something you want to walk through with me, feel free to give me a call, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Check us out online, listingsincharleston.com, or send an email to brian@brianbeattyteam.com. Stick around. We're going to talk about this just a little bit more before we talk about buying a home in this market. And then we're also going to talk about if you're cash heavy right now, if you're thinking about investing in real estate, is this the right time? Should you wait? Should you jump on an opportunity if one presents itself? Let's get into that in greater detail here in a little bit as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA.